in particular to discuss some of the changes that we have made to make SAM easier for India-specific analyses, particularly with reference to location availability and financial models. So our goal with this project was really to provide a prototype for thinking about how the SAM financial models might be used in the Indian context, and to implement some changes which could facilitate doing so, and that were consistent with a well-known baseline norm. So we don't intend this as the end of this process. We view what we are presenting today really as an intermediate step to achieving a more broadly internationalized SAM. And then we also hope that this allows the user community to begin to think about how they might use this tool and provide feedback on tweaks that we could make to improve it. So before I go on, I want to extend a really quick thank you to both NREL and CSTEP, the Center for the Study of Science, Technology, and Policy. NREL very graciously provided invaluable support on implementing the changes to SAM, and I was extremely fortunate to be able to spend last summer at CSTEP in Bangalore to do some of the formative research for this. So with that, I want to do a brief overview of what we're going to cover in the webinar today. Amy Curtright of the RAND Corporation is going to give an overview of the Sirius consortium. Then Nate Blair of the National Renewable Energy Lab is going to give a really brief overview of SAM. I know many of you are probably familiar with SAM or users of SAM. But for anyone who is less familiar, we want to make sure everyone has a baseline. And then after that, I'm going to summarize some of the changes that we've made to SAM over the past few months and go through a really quick demo of a wizard that we've developed to help introduce and orient users to some of these changes, as well as doing a quick overview of a comparison we did between SAM results, modified SAM's results, and the CERC tariff determination norms. So hopefully at the end we're going to have a lot of time for questions. If you do have questions as we're presenting, please go ahead and type them into the question box that you see in the webinar control panel. And we will answer all of the questions at the end of the presentation and hopefully give people a chance to follow up. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amy Curtright to talk about the Sirius consortium.
Thank you, Sarah. As Sarah said, this is Amy Curtright from RAND Corporation, and I just want to take a moment or two to tell you a little bit about the Sirius consortium, which, as Sarah mentioned, funded and supported her time and travel for some of the early stages of this work, and which provides the broader context and framework in which we are pursuing this collaboration. So Sirius is short for the Solar Energy Research Institute for India and the U.S., and as the name implies, it is a binational research consortium jointly funded by the U.S. and Indian governments under the PACE-R platform. So it's a partnership to advance clean energy in ways that are based on research. So the PACE-R consortium has come together with these two sets of government funding, as well as matching funds from private sector partners in both the U.S. and India to invest in a number of different research areas, one of those being solar, and Sirius is that PACE-R consortium for the U.S. and India. So the vision of Sirius is to leverage the power of this binational collaboration to develop and deploy new solar technologies, specifically ones that are relevant to India. We're hoping to accelerate the development of solar electric technologies through fundamental and applied research, through analysis and assessment, through outreach, and through workforce development, including summer internships like the one Sarah mentioned that she participated in. So this is the team. You can see it is clearly a very a large research consortium. It is led by the National Renewable Energy Lab on the U.S. side, by IISc Bangalore on the Indian side, and more than 30 different research organizations and companies including RAND, the organization that Sarah and I work for, and CSTEP, our collaborators in India, which is the Center for the Study of Science, Technology, and Policy. And it's pretty clear from this list that it's a very expansive and impressive set of institutions that have come together for this consortium. So the next chart just shows you in cartoon form the areas of research that we are working in. So we have a large group of folks focused on developing photovoltaic technologies, another group focusing on concentrated solar power technologies, and then a third a set of researchers and institutions that are working to integrate those areas together along with broader integration into the electricity grid in a research area called solar energy integration. We, as part of solar energy integration, have been developing techno-economic tools for policy analysis. Some of these have been developed independently by the Sirius consortium for the Sirius consortium, and including there are a number of tools that you can find on the website of our collaborators, CSTEP. Other tools have leveraged existing platforms, and the information you're going to hear today is an example of us working with an existing platform to make it more useful and relevant to researchers, to policymakers, to solar project developers that are based in India. And so hopefully you'll have a better idea of how that works. Right now I'll turn it over to Nate Blair to tell you a little bit about the basics of SAM.
Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Nate Blair. I'm happy to be here. And I want to I know many of you are SAM users and have heard me speak before, perhaps unfortunately for you. But I think what we want to do is just sort of set the stage and also just remind people that there are a number of features of SAM that to date in the Sirius activity we haven't really touched. And so this has been a somewhat focused effort to date. So as you likely know, SAM is a free software that we have developed over the last 11 or 12 years here at NREL. And it really features two key things. One is detailed performance modeling. There are a lot of tools out there that have either high-level performance models or require the user to be a programmer. And so what we've tried to do is kind of split the difference, make it easy to use, but still detailed enough to really dig into a variety of technological issues. And then secondly, that we're tying that to detailed cash flow models. And one of the areas that we've worked on, and which Sarah will speak to shortly, is really on the financial side. And on the financial side, in part because renewable technologies span the whole gamut of markets, we have residential and commercial behind-the-meter markets, behind-the-meter financials, as well as power purchase agreements, single owner equity flip, sale leaseback. Those are more typically used in a larger utility scale system. And then a simple LCOE calculator, which allows you to bypass a lot of the financial inputs and try to get more directly to an LCOE. And next slide, please, Sarah. And this graphic really illustrates sort of what you need to go into SAM. And one of the areas that we've been working on and are making progress on, but aren't probably done with completely yet in this version, is, at the system level, you need to find or use weather data, and we've made some progress there, making that easier for India users. You combine that with system specifications, what kind of panels, what kind of inverters, and that combines together to get the hourly or sub-hourly electricity production. Then you bring that down, start adding in the economic pieces, the cost data, utility rates and incentives, and the financing options. And so those three boxes, we've focused on the financing options, and Sarah will speak to that. We have made, through this process at least, less movement in terms of gathering and aligning utility rates and or cost data for India. and so that's still mostly on the India user base to deal with. And then the results are wide-ranging: annual, monthly, hourly outputs, LCOE, MPV, payback, revenue, capacity factor. So a variety of both technical outputs, power production outputs, as well as financial outputs. Next slide, please. And then I wanted to just touch on sort of who uses SAM and what do they use it for. So as you can see on the right pie chart, the bulk of users are from the United States, as one might expect, and then Spain. And these numbers fluctuate depending on sort of what technologies are of interest in a particular country. But Spain and then India is third. We've also worked, I would add, with Australia, who's fourth on that list, and tried several years ago in a similar project to tailor SAM for users in Australia. And some of those sample files and templates and the flexibility we added on the financial side is still present in SAM. And so this is one in at least a series of two situations that are similar on that front. We've got over 35,000 active users. When you start up SAM, it pings our API to say, hey, we've started up. So someone's starting up SAM about every 3 minutes around the world. And I think the last time we checked, we had at least 370 active users. So those are people pinging the startup script on a regular basis in India. And so we want to, serve those users as well as potential other users. Then in the lower left, we have a lot of academic users, and I think that aligns with the Sirius project. And we try to track some of that. These are the number of Google Scholar citations, so journal articles, technical reports, etc., published that reference SAM each year. And as you can see, it's continuing to grow significantly each year. So with that, Sarah, I think I'll turn it back over to you. And again, I'll be available throughout and at the end if there's questions specifically around SAM. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Nate and Amy. So I'm going to quickly go over some of the changes that we've made to SAM and some of the logic behind those changes. So when I initially started this project and we began working with NREL, we conducted a survey of current SAM users, which some of you may have completed. And we also conducted a number of interviews with stakeholders within India. And based on the feedback we got from those two processes, we decided to focus our work on two major aspects of SAM. One is the expansion of the available location data, and then regarding weather files, and then also to do some work to try and clarify how SAM's financial models might relate to the Indian context. So with reference to the first goal, we expanded the database of locations that were available in SAM by linking to the National Solar Resource Database, which is a SUNY NREL-hosted project. And through that, we expanded the available weather data that comes pre-packaged with SAM from 8 cities to 78 cities. We also have incorporated the ability for users to directly import data from the NSRDB database. If they have a particular latitude and longitude they would like to access data for, they can do that through SAM as a download. With respect to the financing approaches, we kept our work fairly focused. So we chose to focus on working with PV systems, and we chose to focus on, in this initial iteration, on single owner power purchase agreements, which is one of the more accessible SAM financial models, and also has the benefit of being fairly closely aligned with some of the approaches taken by the CERC tariff determinations. And then we chose to use the CERC tariff determinations as a a template for kind of demonstrating the places where SAM overlaps and then differs slightly from the approach. So as we did this, we created a specific financial template file, which populates baseline costs that are consistent with the CERC, and also removes any inapplicable values or baselines that are normally in SAM. So for instance, when you first open up SAM, typically you have state level tax rates are pre-populated, and we've zeroed those out in this template file, along with a number of other US specific sorts of incentives and financial specifications. So beyond that, we also have made some changes to the underlying SAM code to let users conduct analyses that are directly comparable with the CERC tariff determination norms, and also, if they so desire, incorporate two of the available incentives that exist within India that do not exist in the United States. So with respect to the comparison with the CERC tariff norms, we made code changes that allow users to calculate their loan terms on a fixed principal declining interest basis, whereas SAM typically uses a fixed payment amortization structure. We allow users to specify a receivables reserve in addition to SAM's normal operations and maintenance reserve. And we include a new calculation for return on equity, which is one of the places where the CERC tariff approach differs most significantly from SAM. With respect to policy incentives available, we have included a loan moratorium period that users can specify, and we have also included a users can specify the tax rates at an annual basis, which allows you to represent the effect of tax holidays on your financial outcomes in a way that wasn't possible in previous versions of SAM. As we were doing this, we realized that we needed a way to introduce these changes to users, and so that spurred the decision to develop a wizard, which is a way for us to introduce users to some of these changes and to produce outputs that are consistent with the CERC norms. Part of achieving the wizard also involved dealing with this question of currency units within SAM. And we have not fully internationalized SAM with respect to its currency treatment. The way we have achieved what we have achieved is we have achieved inputs and get rupee-denominated outputs back. And we've done that through the use of the LK scripting language that comes with SAM. And so the way I think of it is as partial rupee native SAM support for international currencies. That is work that we've decided to leave for future efforts. So I'm going to really quickly run through a demo of the wizard so people can see kind of the changes that have been made, and then we're going to do a quick comparison with the CERC. All right. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the opening page of the System Advisor model. And typically you go to start a new project or open a project file. What we have done for this work is to allow users to go to this quick start for new users page and go to the line labeled PV India to start the wizard. And when you do that, you get an introduction to what the wizard is, as well as a brief discussion of how currency is being handled within the wizard. Once you read that, you move on. You get to choose a location from the database. I'm going to go ahead and stick with Jodhpur, which is the kind of standard baseline that I've been working with because its power production from the NSRDB database is relatively close to the CERC tariff assumptions. You choose your system size, and then you type in your capital and operations and maintenance costs. And in the CERC, these are done as fixed quantities. What we've done is we've chosen to express them in rupees, basically rupees per watt, in order to allow them to scale with your system size. And all of your inputs, all of your financial and monetary inputs are put in rupees. And then all of your outputs are also expressed in rupees. So you set your O&M, and then you set your maintenance acceleration rate. Something to know about the wizard is that sometimes the CERC expectations about what you're entering and what SAM actually requires to run its calculations differ. So in this case, the CERC assumes that maintenance acceleration includes inflation, and you have to specify that, whereas SAM already incorporates inflation, and all you have to specify is the amount above inflation that you are thinking that you are anticipating maintenance acceleration to be applicable for. You choose your debt percent and the rest of your financial parameters. The SAM wizard for India already comes with the fixed principal declining interest button selected. As with any of these parameters, if users want to be more specific in their selections or change some of these things that we've left fixed in the wizard, they'll either need to modify an LK script to do it, or they'll need to exit the wizard and modify these parameters separately. So you choose your interest rate, and then you have the option to choose your loan moratorium period as well. And then you choose your inflation rate. So the treatment of SAM and CERC, the treatment of inflation and discounting in SAM as compared to the CERC norms is relatively different. So this inflation rate is set currently to the value that I calculated approximately last year, and could be modified or updated if users wish to. So users should keep in mind, though, that SAM distinguishes between nominal currency values and real ones, whereas the CERC calculations don't specify that distinction. So when we interpret LCOE values within SAM as compared to CERC, I'm interpreting those as nominal LCOE values rather than real ones. So what this means is that when CERC specifies a discount rate of 10.7, that's a nominal discount rate. And so I then have to use my inflation rate that I calculated separately in order to back out what the real discount rate is. So this is something that users need to keep in mind when they're kind of setting up this part of the analysis. So then after you've kind of sorted that out, you finish your financial parameters, you set your tax rate at the federal level, and you set your months of working capital reserve and your months of receivables reserve. And both of those are populated with what should be the CERC kind of baseline assumptions about that. And finally, you set your reserves interest rate and your return on equity. And the way we've structured return on equity, you set a percentage for the first 10 years, and then you set a separate percentage for the 11th year onward. And that's it. You're ready to run the simulation. And what you get out is a summary results page that expresses the levelized cost of energy, the net present value, the internal rate of return, and the minimum debt service coverage ratio. And all of these are expressed in rupees in some way, in terms of rupees effectively. You also get a cash flow table that is also expressed in rupees, and that is consistent with the CERC tariff categories. So if I were to scroll down on this, the return on equity is down at the bottom. You additionally have the ability within the wizard to generate a tornado chart, which shows you the sensitivity of your LCOE to various parameters. and you can that also is exported as part of a PDF report that you can generate. The same goes for a plot of the breakdown of the various contributors to your LCOE calculation. And then you can output those to a PDF file, like so. Finally, you can output a Excel workbook from your results that gives you both a summary of what you see within SAM, but that also includes the calculations that were used to generate the cash flow table that you see within SAM. So you can actually look at how the calculations were generated and modify them if you so desire. So with that, I'm going to return to the PowerPoint. And since we chose to use the CERC as a really sort of baseline and as the framework for this initial attempt to compare SAM to CERC, we did a quick comparison of kind of how well SAM was lining up and where the major source of the discrepancies was coming from. So the total discrepancy between the value of LCOE calculated within SAM and the total value of LCOE calculated by the CERC norms when at the same location is about 2.25%. The largest single discrepancy between the two calculations is actually on the interest on loan term. And that is driven by the fact that SAM calculates the compounding of interest on an annual basis, whereas the CERC calculations operate on a monthly basis. So this means that SAM, over the course of the loan, will expect a greater interest paid on the loan. So the other significant discrepancy, well, the smaller significant discrepancy is that there's a difference between SAM's calculation of depreciation as compared to that of the CERC norms. And that arises because SAM includes the receivables reserve in the value it uses to calculate the depreciable basis. So SAM's depreciable basis is slightly higher than the CERC norms. I would want to mention too that if either of these discrepancies are really deeply problematic for any users, they have the option to modify anything in the Excel workbook and get to a calculation that is completely reflective of the CERC norms if they so desire. So some potential future extensions we would be interested in making include, in the near term, making some tweaks to the tool on the basis of feedback from users and stakeholders in India, including today's webinar. So if you have suggestions or comments, please pass them on. We'd be delighted to have them. With future funding, there's a number of things we would like to do. We would like to pursue full financial internationalization of SAM so that instead of enabling rupee input and output via the LK script, we can have that as sort of a native capability within SAM, which would involve some sort of currency conversion structure. So the other two things we'd like to do that are particularly relevant, I think, for the Sirius consortium research is that we'd like to extend this work beyond the PV single owner PPA to include other sorts of financing baselines, other sorts of financing areas. So for instance, residential analysis and CSP technology would be places that might be relevant for us to work on expanding this into. But all of that is contingent on what future funding looks like. So with that, I just want to summarize really quickly what the changes we've made. We have expanded the location database for solar resources. and enabled access to an online NSRDB database of solar resources in India. And we have enabled, they've given users an option to input rupee denominated values and get rupee denominated values back that are easily interpretable without placing the burden on the user to keep track of the currency units that are going into and coming out of SAM. We've made a number of changes to the financing options, including enabling a direct comparison calculation with that is consistent with the CERC norms, as well as adding a couple of policy features of the Indian policy landscape that don't exist in the United States. And finally, we've given users a number of options to output these results into a variety of different images and reports. So with that, I think we want to open it up for questions. And we will work through the written ones that have been sent, and then we will open it up to any follow-ups if we have time. And so people know we're going to post, we've been recording this, and we're going to post the webinar to online, so users will have access to it afterwards. So with that, I will take a look at the first set of questions.
Thanks, Sarah. We've been sort of monitoring the questions and answering them as you speak.
Oh, okay, great.
There's one comment about the CERC data having changed recently. You might want to speak to. I'm not sure.
I can pick that up.
Yeah, go ahead.
So everything we've done, all the baselines that are in there right now are concorded to last year's CERC tariff determinations. We haven't had a chance to take a look at or incorporate changes relative to the newest tariff determinations. So yes, that is a discrepancy. But I'm glad to know that the new tariff calculations are out and available.
And I think one thing that I mentioned in my response to that question was just that the wizard is kind of a starting point. Once you run the wizard, then you can go back to the SAM inputs and modify those as you like.
Yeah, absolutely. The use of the SAM file as a template file is useful, but if users can populate whatever they need or modify whatever they need to in order to come up with something that is more reflective of their baseline assumptions. And those open as regular SAM project files.
Okay, we have one person who's raised their hand. So I think I'll unmute Vignesh. I think I'll unmute your line so you can ask your question by voice if you'd like. And if anyone else has a question, feel free to raise your hand and we'll do the same for you. Vignesh, welcome. Oh. It looks like he's self-muted, so perhaps he did not mean to ask a question. Here's a question from David. What is the plan to update the data periodically and who is responsible? Great presentation, by the way, outstanding piece of work.
So I'm hopeful that we will be, at least within the Sirius consortium, be able to use this. And I think Amy and I have plans to keep working with the tool as we go forward, and so I'll be planning to make updates on our end, at least for the duration of the Sirius project, but maybe Amy or Nate could speak more to kind of a more formal incorporation.
So I think in terms of the solar resource data updates, I think that is something that will happen regardless of the the work that we are doing. But and the additional financial parameters, those are pretty much those could change with policy changes in India, in which case we'd want to update those. But I think those should largely be, have those should largely be reflected already. So as Sarah said, our intention at this point is to do some analysis using the PV portion of this tool, and then the near term is to extend this into the CSP portion. And I don't know if Nate has just sort of general comments on plans for other more broadly internationalizing and keeping things up to date.
Yeah, sure, Amy. This is Nate. I would add that we typically release a new version of SAM, a major version, about once a year, and then in between we have a series of patches. And I think all the fundamental changes which we've focused on here, in part, will continue to be present, and those won't need to be updated. I think what we do with our major releases, we update the SAM defaults based on the latest U.S. data typically, and I think as we go forward, and if we have the resources, we can work together with Indian users and others to figure out what would be the best data set to use to update the wizard and or India-specific templates. I think as hopefully this gets even more popular in India than it is now, we can continue to work with our users to post updated templates and other things as part of that user community. And as for the internationalization, we are pursuing, we've written up a project proposal for that, and we're pursuing a number of angles to kind of get that funded broadly, not just perhaps even for India, but doing it also for Mexico and in Spanish, as well as potentially other languages. So we have a larger plan laid out, and we're working to kind of figure out if we can get funds for that.
Great. Thank you, Nate. There's a couple questions that are sort of technical questions about SAM that I think I'll go ahead and address. There's one about degradation due to LID, which I assume is light-induced degradation, and how that's considered in the cost calculation. So that's sort of more of a detail in the cost side of, in the performance side of the model, and depends how you, there's a degradation rate on the lifetime input page, and then there are sort of loss factors on the losses page that you can use to account for those kinds of degradation. So I think in short, the model does account for that loss. And then there's a question about from a SAM beginner about where to find information to learn SAM. And for that, SAM has a built-in help system that has a getting started section that's perhaps a good starting point. And then if you go to the SAM website, there's a resources tab that has a link to a webinars page where you can find recordings of webinars on various topics about using SAM. That's also a useful resource for learning SAM. And we also have a support forum and an email address for technical support that you can also find on the SAM website. So you can contact us with questions that you have, and those, we monitor those daily, so you'll get responses fairly quickly. Let's see, there's a question here that maybe I'll have Sarah or Amy take. It's a great presentation. Is it possible to add site-specific baseline measurement data?
So insofar as SAM in general will accept I believe a number of data formats that users may want to manually upload, then yes. I think that's the most accurate answer I can give. We don't have anything special within the wizard to permit that, but uploading your own site-specific data should be something that SAM's native capability can handle.
Right. So, so you can, if you're talking about weather data, then you can get data. There's some built-in files that come with SAM, and there's also you click the download button on the location and resource page. That gives you access to data from the NREL NSRDB, National Solar Radiation Database, that has data for locations in parts of Asia, including India. So you can use that data that kind of is available directly through SAM, and then if you have your own weather data from a different source, then you can also use that with SAM. And then here's a question, a suggestion in terms of priority or order of working on the model. Would be better if you have rooftop solar available before CSP, since there is, according to this speaker, absolutely no CSP activity in India.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting tensions on this project has been the fact that within the Sirius consortium we are informing both CSP and PV research, and so this means that sometimes there's the match between market development and kind of what is at the deployment phase and what is used for research purposes differs somewhat. But that's a good point, that the rooftop market is something that there are people making efforts to build out.
And the relative importance of the PV market compared to CSP, both in India and internationally, is one of the reasons we started with PV rather than launching right into CSP portions of the model. So it is a point well taken, but as Sarah said, it is relevant for the fundamental research that's going on within the Sirius consortium.
And then as far as SAM is concerned, SAM does have residential and what we call commercial financial models that make it possible to model those types of projects. So although we don't have the India-specific templates for those types of projects, it is possible to use SAM to model those types of projects for India. And then here's a question about loan calculations. Is it not possible to change the loan repayment calculation to avoid compounding and replicate the CERC version?
I can pick that up, and then Nate can comment if he wants to add on. When we sort of scoped this project, the structure of the loan term and the loan debt calculation was fairly deeply embedded in the code of SAM, and it was a place where we, in terms of the relative benefit of using our money wisely and using our energies wisely, we sort of decided that discrepancy was one that we weren't going to prioritize. And what I would add to that, though, is that any user who wants to eliminate that particular discrepancy can do so within the output Excel file. I actually have the output Excel structured in such a way that you have access to both the annual loan compounding that SAM uses and the monthly loan compounding that CERC uses. And so users users basically only have to adjust the pointers on that Excel model in order to eliminate that discrepancy within the outputs.
Right, and Sarah, I would just add, I think when these two items that you mentioned stand out because they're still not completely aligned. So when we started this process, the alignment was much, much worse, frankly. And so a lot of these things that we've added here and a lot of the hard work that you've done have got us to where these two items are the sort of the remaining little pieces. And I think the other thing that we sort of struggle with or are constrained by is we don't, well, I would say we would prefer not to do a lot of really India-specific structural things in SAM because, then we've got sort of two things that we're maintaining sort of behind the scenes. What we've tried to do here is really just add in a lot of additional flexibility that you could take advantage of in India or set to zero or ignore if you're in the US or if you're in Europe or somewhere else. And so I think that was the other piece of our general prioritization was what can we do that adds flexibility for everybody that helps us align with sort of the standard in India. So would you agree with that statement, Sarah?
Yeah, I totally would. It's just that those conversations were so long ago. I think our initial, the closest we ever got before we started trying to do some concordance work was about 20% off, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 15 to 20% off of the CERC calculations.
Right. But anyway, so I think we do have these two items that you point out as sort of the remaining items, and for some people they could be a significant issue, but I think we've come a long way, I guess is one way to say it. But.
Okay, great. Here's a question about getting daily energy output that I'll just touch on very quickly. If you go to the results page, there's a profiles tab that shows daily profiles over the entire analysis period. There are ways to get all sorts of data out of SAM, and I encourage you to contact us via SAM support, so sam.support@nrel.gov, or you can use the contact form on the SAM website to follow up on that question, and we can give you more details on exactly how to find the kind of data you're looking for. Would this webinar recording be available? Yes, we are recording it, and we will post it. We'll follow up to let you know where to find the recordings, but we do plan to make those available. Does SAM help to simulate process heat system with parabolic trough? Yes. The latest version of SAM has a new process heat model. Again, we don't have sort of India-specific defaults for that model, but you certainly can use it for your analysis. Is it possible to do incremental cost-benefit analysis in a situation where a solar PV installation is planned to supplement existing power sources like the power grid and diesel gensets? SAM doesn't model hybrid power systems or sort of a microgrid scenario explicitly. You can use SAM to gain some insights into that kind of a system, but it basically assumes that the system you're modeling, whether it be a PV or CSP system or wind system, is interacting with the grid, but doesn't provide for there to be another power source. And again, you can follow up with us if you have more questions about that. Does the cost calculation utilize GHI irradiance data or POA?
Paul?
Yes.
Paul, this is Nate. I would just add to that last question that we don't have diesel gensets, and we don't have some of these other hybrid activities, but we do have batteries, and I don't know that we covered that for anyone that didn't see that in the SAM documentation. So PV plus batteries is an option, and that's something that could be a growing need in India where there's intermittent grid reliability.
That's right, and it's also, you can also use SAM to model a standalone battery storage system. It requires a little bit of a workaround, but yeah, battery storage was added fairly recently in SAM. Question about irradiance data, and the quick answer is yes. You can use a weather file that uses some combination of, well, any two of GHI, DNI, and DHI, so diffuse, global, or direct irradiance. Or if you have POA data, you can also use that as input to SAM. And you specify which components of the solar irradiance, or whether you want to use POA data on the location and resource input page. Question about whether 10 years of data for India is available for P50 or P60 P90. Nate, does the NSRDB data for India include, do you know how many years are built into that?
Yeah, I read ahead and I just pulled it up, and it's 2000 to 2014. Plus there's a TMY file built off of it, and so for our PV Watts tool, for example, we use the TMY file built off of those 15 years. So those are the years that are currently available. And you can go to nsrdb.nl.gov and click, launch the NSRDB viewer, and that's where you can get to some of the data download wizard capabilities. Or you can type an address into SAM, and I believe you have that same list of all those years available. So, and so that is an adequate number of years to do a P50, P90 analysis.
And we do have plans. At the moment, you can only download a single weather file at a time from SAM, but I think in the next version we'll have a new feature that allows you to download a whole set of weather files at once, so it'll facilitate that P50, P90 analysis. And here's some feedback about Homer and SAM. I think I just want to clarify one thing, which is that Homer was originally developed at NREL, but is now developed by a company called Homer Energy. We have no plans for sort of developing the kind of model that you're describing there. So I don't know, Nate, if you wanted to add anything else to that.
I would just add that we periodically talk with the Homer team, and they live just up the road here. And so I think we have gained from each other's experiences, but we've always tried to sort of have SAM be perhaps more detailed for specific systems, and Homer is more perhaps a little bit less detailed on the performance side, but allows you to really mix and mingle all of these potential options together to create a hybrid system.
And then here's a question about grid reliability. So I think at the moment, SAM sort of treats the grid as a reliable source of power. But with the addition of battery modeling in SAM, we have started looking at ways to model grid outages and that sort of thing. So it's something we're aware of. It's not something we can handle in SAM at the moment, but stay tuned. Perhaps we'll add that in a future version. Okay, it looks like that's all the questions we have at the moment. Amy or Sarah, did you have any additional comments?
I didn't particularly. I think all the issues and questions that have been raised are things that are relevant, particularly the question of combining analysis with diesel gensets. And so I think, as you said, Paul, these are things we're aware of as being analytic kind of things that we'd be interested in, but they were a bit further beyond where we were able to go with this particular effort.
I will just, this is Amy, I will just add that just thank everyone for participating and invite feedback down the road once you have the chance to spend some quality time using SAM on your own. If there are things that you think would be useful for us to incorporate or to consider, we would love to have that feedback.
Yeah, but this is Nate Blair, and I would echo that. I think, you know, we have a little bit of time left in our fiscal year, and we have some resources left to kind of finish some of the things that we started here. But but we would welcome any input on, you know, perhaps additional metrics or other things that the particular users would find useful, particularly anyone who's been using SAM in India for you know, a significant number of projects. I think any information you want to send our way or post on the SAM forum, or if you've got templates or cost data suggestions, all of that would be welcome. So please provide feedback. Thank you.
All right, well, I think before we wrap up here, I just want to mention that, again, we have recorded this session, and we'll contact you by email to let you know where to find the recording.
Great.
All right, well, if there's no more questions or comments, again, if anything, if you have any thoughts about this, please feel free to contact us, and we can go ahead and sign off.
Okay,
Thanks,
have a good
everyone.
day.